Okay. Now, the details of the writing of Thus Spake Zarathustra. There's plenty of details on the when all of the writing of the four books of Zarathustra was written. Quote, the first part of Zarathustra was written in about 10 days, that is to say, from the beginning to about the middle of February 1883. Now, we look at the timeline format. In 1883, beginning and middle, we see that Pluto is within a degree orb of the descendant at that time. So when he starts writing Zarathustra, Pluto's within orb of the descendant. And remember, the character of Zarathustra emerged seemingly from nowhere in August 1881, back when his transit started. Go back here to 1881. August 10th, Pluto goes exact. 1882, he meets Lou Salome. Pluto is exact twice during that year. Twice while they are interacting. While they're interacting with each other, spending time with each other, writing to each other, walking with each other, Pluto goes exact twice during that. Pluto goes exact twice during the emergence of the idea of the eternal recurrence in Zarathustra. So now, for the first part of Zarathustra, Pluto is again of the descendant. Now, the second part of Zarathustra was written between the 26th of June and the 6th of July. Let us go back to the timeline format. We see here that in the middle of June, Pluto goes out of orb. Pluto goes out of orb in the middle of June. Said that he started writing this part, the second part, in the late part of June and even into July. So Pluto is out of orb. Now, it's barely out of a degree orb. It's only a couple minutes away. If we extended our orb to a degree in 15 minutes, then it would be an orb during the beginning of that. It would be an orb during almost all of that if we extended it. Just a couple of minutes, not even necessarily a degree. Another thing that could be happening is that the transits just ended. It just went out of orb in the middle of June and has brought so much to the surface that now Nietzsche is in a process of late June and July of picking up the pieces of what has been brought to the surface, what was beforehand unknown in a sense, and now is known, and I have to do something with what is known, with this, mess that has been made, if you will. So that could be going on. But in any event, strictly speaking, with this birth time that we're using, it's not an orb. But I don't think that's cause for too much concern. I still think it's operating because of everything, every other connection that's being made. And the fact that maybe the orb is actually, it's fair to extend it a couple of minutes. Most people probably don't use that tight of an orb to begin with, a degree. So, moving on, there's four parts of Zarathustra. Certainly, I could be wrong about that. That's another option about the birth time. So, the third part of Zarathustra, in the following winter of 1884, I found the third Zarathustra. So, what was going on with the transits then? Now, this is back to the big picture I'm talking about. Everything else seems to line up, in other words. So, we see, and that's a little bit of an ambiguous statement. So, the third part of Zarathustra was written in January, began to be written in January 1884. Okay, so the winter of 1884. Are we talking about, you know, December 1884 or December 1883? We're talking about December 1883, going into January and February of 1884. So we see here Pluto begins to go in a degree orb in December 1883 and remains in orb all throughout the winter of 1884 and 1883, which is what was being referred to here, the time period being referred to here. It goes exact twice in February. He writes it in January, or begins writing it or finishes it in January, not sure, but it starts during the winter of 1884. This is the time period Pluto is red hot activated during this time. One more book you still need to write. You see, after this go round, this sweep, you see a long period of time where Pluto is not within orb. So there's a respite, and he doesn't start writing the fourth until it's back in orb, which is astonishing. That's just what keeps happening. It's almost like Pluto's a puppet master because Pluto gets within an orb and then Nietzsche starts becoming active. It's just astonishing. I don't mean to suggest that he's being manipulated by the planets. It's just an interesting metaphor. The fourth part and final part was finished between the end of January and the middle of February 1885. Pluto goes out of orb. What I mean by that is this. We'll go back to the timeline format. We see that the end of January and the middle of February, well, Pluto goes in within a degree or of the descendant. End of January, beginning of February, for the last time. It doesn't go exact. It doesn't even go exact. It never makes it exact, but it comes close enough for him to finish that fourth book during this time period, which is this brief spell that Pluto is actually within orb, and Pluto and Nietzsche is writing the fourth part. And here's the kicker. It never comes back in orb. It's gone, never to return. We'll just to demonstrate that. Go here to 1886. You don't see any Pluto opposite the ascendant here, conjunct the descendant. It never comes back. It leaves. He says he finished writing it middle of February. Pluto is gone by early March. It never returns, and he never writes another book. So the correlations overall, except for that second book, are astonishing. And even the second book, it's still very close, extremely close. It's really not much of a cause of concern from my view. So the details of the writing of Zarathustra are reflected by the transits of Pluto to the descendant in Nietzsche. Interestingly and comically, in a sense, quote, he also mentioned a fifth and sixth part leading to Zarathustra's death, quote, or else he will give me no peace. This is funny because he doesn't realize that he is being swept over by Pluto multiple times, 3 or 4 times during this. He has about had enough, and he's ready to kill Zarathustra just to be left alone. And that is the intensity of Pluto for sure. So many things that Nietzsche says are so reflective of what's going on with this Pluto transit. And that is the details of the writing of Thus Spake Zarathustra and how it correlates with Pluto transits to the descendant. In the next video, I will do several things. I'm going to wrap things up and propose some things. So I thank you for listening, and I hope you come and listen to that.